Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Paporis, and Treasurer Higley. I am Karen Brown, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, and I am proud to be presenting today with Jocelyn Boyd, our Coordinator of Student Wellness, Jeremy Akery, our Attendance and Residency Coordinator, and Mike Manell, our Director of Student Leadership, on our student support services within the district, and we'd love to give you an overview of the ways that we support student success outside of the classroom. We want to start by thanking the board for its support of services for the whole child, because we know it's only through our support of the whole child that our students really can achieve success. The state strategic plan, which I've provided for you in the folders, is built around the whole child. This visual is what they have used over and over again to show how each one of the aspects of the strategic plan really contributes to whole child success. I've stood before you several times before to talk about the goal of this plan, which is around post-secondary success for students and how students should be prepared for the challenges that await them after graduation. And I'm immensely proud of the work that we've done in the district to support students in this area. But like the state, here in Euclid, we recognize that students can't achieve that success if they're hungry, if they lack resources like food, shelter, emotional and physical security, if they're experiencing mental health issues, or if they simply lack role models to show them how to achieve their goals. So I'm proud to be with this team to share with you what we're doing to support those areas for students as well. So we're lucky here in Euclid that our students have a variety of trained professionals supporting them in a number of ways, from school psychologists to student mentors to school social workers and school counselors. But one of the important things that we're working to do is to align those resources and create systems that allow these professionals to do their work and maximize their efforts without stepping on each other's toes or duplicating efforts. And so that starts with educating everyone on how our support staff fit into an overall system of support. I've provided the board with a list of who the individuals are who fall into each of these categories: psychologists, family liaisons, school counselors. So a more detailed description of what each of them does is included in your packet, but here's a snapshot of what support services are available in our pre-K to 8 buildings, and then the support services at the high school. Though these staff members will often work together as part of the district crisis team or the threat assessment team, which I'll talk about in more detail later, each of them really does play a unique role in the services that we provide to students. School counselors are our only universal support in the district, meaning every student in the district is assigned a school counselor. Our counselors are responsible for assisting students with future planning, academic planning, goal setting, and developing interpersonal skills needed for success. They work diligently to lead our students through the state career connections framework of career awareness, career exploration, and career planning, helping students to understand the relevance of their coursework, as well as helping them to access opportunities and supports that align with their goals. Unlike the counselors, though, students are not all assigned a social worker or a school psychologist or a mentoring specialist, and only some students receive services from these professionals. Primarily, our psychologists work with students with disabilities or those students who are suspected of having a disability. Our social workers, who K to 8 we refer to as family liaisons, and at the high school we employ a family resource manager, primarily work with students who present with mental health needs, family resource needs, or who have specific behavioral needs. The high school is the only building that has mentoring specialists, and these individuals work to build relationships with students to help them make good decisions, hopefully to avoid conflict. And when conflicts do arise, these individuals work with administration to help them resolve conflicts, and plan for building safety. Again, all of these people support students while they are in crisis, and there are times where their duties overlap, but we thought it was really important to define the primary focus for each of these individuals so that we can have a system of support that runs smoothly. When we presented to the board on the school counseling curriculum and again on high school pathways, you heard a lot about the work of school counselors in the district. So I won't go into more depth about them, but I am going to turn it over to Mike and Jocelyn now to give you more detail on the work of our targeted support service staff.
Good evening. Part of my role as Director of School Leadership is working with our administrators, but also our athletic director, as well as our Director of Secondary Mentoring, Damian Creel. And tonight I want to just talk about some of the programming that we've worked to put in place at Euclid High School. So Assistant Superintendent Brown mentioned our mentor specialists. We have 2 mentor specialists at the high school, as well as the mentor coordinator, Mr. Creel. So far this year, they've served over 230 students. These 230 students get assigned to work with a mentor either by teacher referral, administrator recommendation, a counselor recommendation, or for many of the students we're finding this year, they ask for it themselves. They self-advocate for the support that they need. Their focus areas are in conflict mediation, trying to avoid conflicts with their peers, which has been significantly improved this year at Euclid High School. They also seek academic support, where the mentors either help them themselves or they set them up with academic tutoring. They also really focus on substance abuse assistance, mostly at the high school level now at Euclid and across the country. It's vaping. That is a big area that we really try to work with our students to understand the risks of vaping and also the consequences. They also help our students deal with family and peer pressure. Growing up and being a teenager is difficult. Working with Damian Creel, our Dean of Secondary Student Mentoring, I knew I'd get his title correct one of these times, Dean of Secondary Student Mentoring, we talked about how can we build student leaders at Euclid High School. And one of the things we talked about is we have our National Honor Society, we have our Student Council, we have our Key Club, and a lot of opportunities for kids to get involved and work and become leaders. One of the areas that we felt we could really have an impact is working with a lot of our athletic programs and our athletic teams. Our students that are in those programs often aren't able to join some of the other clubs because of their commitment to sports. But we also talked about the impact that really positive leaders amongst our 200 to 250 student athletes at the high school is building those leaders amongst those groups. So one of the programs that he has taken on is working with Athletic Leadership Academy, development of leadership skills focused on empowering our student athletes to excel as leaders. A lot of times we'll pick maybe the student that's the best athlete or the most vocal athlete to be the captain or the leader. What we're trying to find is those students that really have those leadership skills that can take it to another level. So each coach, every sport, for the girls and the boys, selected 2 athletes from their sophomore or junior class that we can work with to help build these skills up so that they can improve their leadership skills. They have monthly workshops, and they focus on being a role model. Being a role model of your peers. What does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to be a captain? Enhancing team morale. A lot of times that can come from a coach, but it also can come from the students and the athletes on the team. Building positive relationships, strengthening those connections with their teammates, their peers, as well as the community. And leadership beyond sports. You know, there's a lot that students can learn from being a part of sports that they can transfer into their future adult lives. A quote here that we look at with our students is leadership is not being the best, it's about making everyone else better. Some of the key programs of the student mentors also, besides just working with those 230 students that come to them, is they do individual student mentoring, like I said, but they also do check-in, check-out with many of our students. Checking in the morning, looking at specific goals, checking out at the end of the day, trying to help those students meet those goals. They also provide the students with support, or they set them up with an outside counselor or outside agency that Ms. Boyd's going to talk about here this evening. We have a lot of different groups that come in, and those mentors are able to help them get the right support from the right person. Also leading student groups focused on specific areas of concern, such as grief, peer relationships, and mental health. And then they work with the students on grade and behavior passports to make sure that they're keeping up with those goals. That's also a part of the check-in and check-out. And now I will turn it over to Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, everyone. I am Jocelyn Boyd. I am the Wellness Coordinator for the district, and I'd like to come before you just to have a discussion about some of the other district services that we have. So we'll start with our school social workers. So we have a family resource manager who is over at the high school, Libby Russo, and we have family liaisons at the other school buildings, and they act as the school social workers. So they do a lot of different things. They offer guidance to our students when needed. They facilitate weekly groups. They are the contact person for a lot of families when they are in need of speaking with school staff. They also provide assistance in the Family Resource Center monthly. So they are able to make sure that our families have what they need in the community. So this is a visual of the locations of where our school social workers are. So we have Deland Johnson at Arbor, we have LaToya Dixon at Bluestone, we have Libby Russo at the high school, Ashley Oliver is at the middle school, and we have Zach Coppice at Shoreview. And I'd like to take this time to thank you all so much for approving us to get additional funding to provide some support to the buildings who need it. So over at Chardon Hills and at Shoreview, we're working with Making a Difference to start providing more groups in those spaces because they need additional support. So this is just an average of since I've been collecting the data from our school social workers. This is a depiction of how many students per month our students are seeing, how many students per month are being seen by the social workers individually. So this is not included in groups. This is just them one-on-one with students. So it seems like the middle school is a little bit lower, and that's because she transitioned to that space recently. She was over at Chardon Hills, and now she's over at the middle school. So some of the groups that our school social workers, they facilitate are RIC, which is the Recess Intervention Program, and that is specific to Arbor, Making Positive Choices, Anger Management and Self-Control, Effort to Improve Student Success, which is also specific to Arbor, and Grief and Loss. So these are groups that have been identified by the building administrators or the social workers themselves felt like the building could benefit from. Some of the groups at the middle school include grief and loss and emotional regulation. Ashley Oliver is shown in the picture here, and she is working with the staff over at the middle school to implement more programming for the students there. At the high school level, Libby Russo is facilitating several groups that include Lady Panthers, Junior Ambassadors, who are pictured here, Substance Misuse Education, Hope and Healing Trauma. The Substance Misuse Education is a program that has been designed to provide intervention for students. So it is more of, it's just education. So if they've been caught with paraphernalia or it's been known that they're using substances, then families will, or the administrators will enroll students in this program to provide more education and to give information about the dangers of using substances. Another way that we support our students is by making sure that we are in close contact with our McKinney-Vento families. So our students who are displaced from home, we know that it could be very traumatic for them, and the reasons why they could be displaced could be anywhere from evictions to house fires or anything like that. So we follow the McKinney-Vento Act just to make sure that our students are well supported. And some of those things are included in the immediate enrollment. At times it is difficult to put your hands on paperwork when you're in transition, when the paperwork doesn't exist anymore. So we make sure that we do the immediate enrollment for our students. One of the major things that has caused a lot of absenteeism is transportation. Families are having a very difficult time getting their students to and fro when they are further away from the school, further away from their home school. So at the elementary level, we'll either provide a van or a bus. And older students, the middle school and high school students, will receive bus passes if possible so that they can still attend school. And another way that we support our students, our McKinney-Vento students, is to provide supportive services. If they need school supplies, if they need clothing, food, anything like that, we make sure that they are contacted and linked with any type of services they may need. And that also includes behavioral health services. And so this is a visual of where all the students are that are enrolled in McKinney-Vento. Currently, our district has 64 students that are McKinney-Vento. And so this is a visualization of where they are in the buildings. And so we see that there's a higher number in the middle school and in the high school. And that could be for a number of different reasons. Some of the experiences that we've seen has been related to behaviors. It's been related to transitions in families. And so we want to make sure that we are reaching out to our families to provide them with the services that they need. So our students who are in foster care we also make sure that we're wrapping our arms around those students. And that support looks very similar to the students who are McKinney-Vento. So we make sure, again, that they are connected with services, making sure that they have what they need, especially clothing and things like that. Students who have been displaced from home, it is extremely traumatic for them. And so us being that support system, that consistent person in the students' lives is extremely important. And so we make sure that we are contacting those students monthly, just to make sure that they have everything that they need. And that includes, again, tutoring, mentoring, social services, the supportive services that we provide. So this is a visualization of our students who we have in foster care. Currently in the district, we have 212 students who are out of their parents' placement. 120 of the students are able to remain in district regardless of their placement. 83 of those students are placed outside of the district, and that could be because maybe their foster home is in Bedford and it's easier for them to attend that school versus waking up at 4 a.m. to make it to the high school by 7:15. So we want to make sure that we still support those families as much as possible, and we've done that by contacting them through the school social workers. Another way that we support our students and the community is through our Family Resource Center. So this is a visualization of what the Family Resource Center looks like now. Previously, it was in one large room at the Memorial Option Center, but now we split it into two spaces. So on the left is the clothing room, and so it has clothes in there, it has socks, underwear, things that families may need, shoes. It also has baby clothes, diapers, a lot of donated items, things that people can hang up on their walls if they want. So families are able to make appointments and they can come in and shop at no cost, and they get what they need, and we just keep track of it, and that's it. This room is solely operated with donations. So it'll be school staff, anyone. Sometimes the families who come in and shop also donate things, which I feel like is amazing, because they feel like if I need something, then I also want to give. So a lot of our families who participate in the clothing room, they do give and take. On the right is where we store our food and our household items. We were grateful enough to receive a grant that supported our McKinney-Vento families. And so there's a lot of household items there, toilet paper, laundry detergent, things like that. And this is also where we store our weekly donations. So we work with the Cleveland Food Bank to gather these donations, and we store them here. There's a refrigerator and a freezer there to house all of the things that we receive weekly. Families are able to access the Family Resource Center during our open hours. The families who have been visiting the Resource Center previously received an email once we moved, and it had the link for families to place orders. So if they needed something, they can place the order and say what day they want to come and pick it up. So it's very easy, it's confidential. They can get what they need when they need it, and it's very beneficial to the families. If families are unable to pre-register for their food when it's our open day, they can come into the center. There's a QR code on the wall. They scan it, they place their order, it's filled, they get the bag, and they go home. So it's a very nice, smooth process. Families are able to still get what they need, and we are able to provide them what they need effectively. So we partner directly with the Cleveland Food Bank to receive donations. Through the food bank, we are able to connect with Target, Trader Joe's, and Dave's. These are our donors right now. So what will happen is one of the school social workers or myself will go to these locations weekly. We will gather the donations and we store them, and then we provide them with our families. We've been working very closely with the food bank lately to ensure that we are able to continue to meet the need of our families. As of late, there have been a lot of inconsistent donations. And so what we did was we just reached out and said, hey, like our families are actually using this space. And we were grateful to work with them, and they were able to provide us with additional donors. So we are still in great works with the food bank. And this is a visualization of the families who are actually using the Resource Center. So currently we have about 44 different families who come into the Resource Center at any given time. We have about maybe 4 or 5 families that will come in. They come in every week. They place their order, they come get their food religiously. We have about 2 or 3 families who will come weekly, and again, 2 or 3 families that will come monthly. But majority of our shoppers are families that are coming whenever they need it. There's no rhyme or reason to their visits. And one of the functions that we wanted to do was to make sure that the Family Resource Center was an actual emergency food location. So it shows that this proves that families are actually seeing us as that. They know that we're in the community. This is not just being serviced by Euclid School families. This is actually being serviced by the community also. So we're extremely pleased to have the families come and get what they need, and they know that we're here. So another way that we supported our families in this district is by hosting a lot of events. So our first event was the Back to School Bash. That was a huge hit. We had over 300 families that came to attend this event. It's an annual event, and I'm so grateful for Libby Russo to take the lead on that and to organize things. But this event was huge. Again, it allowed families to come, get their needs met, so they were able to get clothes and book bags. They were able to get haircuts. They had food. People were getting their nails done. Families were able to go to the Panther Wellness Clinic. They were able to get immunizations as needed. This event was a very large event, and it absolutely serviced the families the way that we needed to. And we're really grateful for having this because, again, it will cut down on some of the absenteeism that we see in the beginning of the school year, where families are like, well, my kid didn't have a haircut, or I didn't have the clothes to give, or we didn't have our school supplies. Coming to this event, they were able to be with their community. They were able to get the things that they need, and they were able to attend school as programmed. So some of our major contributors to the Back to School Bash are Murtis Taylor, Neon, the Church of the Living Stone, the Euclid Police Department, Clearview Community Church, La Barberia Institute of Hair, and the Cleveland Food Bank. So these were individuals who actually brought things to Bash to give out to families, and we are so grateful to partner with all of them. So the visual here is just showing how many families received clothing versus how many families received book bags. Another way that we had supported our community is by hosting a Stop the Violence event. This was hosted by the middle school in Sylvia Green. Sylvia Green is one of our providers. She works with, Ohio Guidestone, and she is a part of the Project Aware program that we have, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But this event was a 2-part event. It was huge over at the middle school. So the first part of the event was an all-school assembly that happened in the middle school, where we brought in a speaker, and he did spoken word, he did rap, he provided information to the students, feedback about what's happening in our world and how we need to move away from the violence that's happening. There was a lot of participation, and it was a lot of encouragement to encourage our younger students to know, like, hey, just because you're young, it doesn't mean that you're not able to provide support for the community and to make positive choices that will later affect your community. The second part of that event was it hosted families. And so it was in the evening. Families were able to come, again, play games, get information, eat food, and to hear our artists again. So again, that was a well-attended, great event for our families and students. So in partnership with Murtis Taylor, which is our community collaborative partner, we hosted a winter coat giveaway on November 14th. I feel like that was the coldest day in November, so it was very appropriate for us to do the winter coat giveaway. At this event, families were able to come get hats, coats, whatever they needed for their student. We ended up serving about 52 families that day. 52 students that day. We were extremely happy to do that. And Murtis Taylor was there, so when the families registered, then they also got a little feedback, a little one-sheeter about the services that Murtis Taylor provides. One of the great things about this was a family had came in, they were sharing how they were having a hard time and weren't able to make their rent that month, and they were all automatically able to get linked with one of the resource managers over at Murtis Taylor to get some assistance with paying their rent. And they did that by just coming to the coat drive. So that was amazing to have our partner, our community partner there in the building. So we are so grateful to Murtis Taylor also. To discuss some of the contracted supports that we have in our school district, we are partnering currently with Belfair, Making a Difference, Peter James, and Ohio Guidestone. Each of the community partners, they provide specific services. And so all of the agencies provide case management and psychotherapy. And then some of the agencies provide student groups and mentoring. So this is a visual of where our providers are in each of the school buildings. And so we just wanted to keep track of how we are reporting information. I've been working very closely with our providers to ensure that we are getting accurate information about who's seen, what is being done with our students, so that we can make sure that we have services that our students need. With our partner agencies, one of the things that we began to track was just like why our students were being referred. We need to know what's going on with our kids. If there's something going on with them, we need to make sure that we're providing that service for them. So this is a visual of some of the things that our students have been referred for: depression, grief and loss, bullying, anger and violence, trauma and anxiety. There's also other. So there have been students who've just been referred because they're in transition. They have a lot of different things going on, and we are unable to just classify it as one thing. So that's why the other is there. But again, those specific services that students need, we make sure that we reach out and provide those services for the students, and we're continuing to track. So the program, Project Aware, is another grant-funded program that we were able to be a part of. In 2020, there was an Oh Yes survey that was given to the students, and it was asking questions like, do you feel like you are supported? Do you feel like you're depressed? Do you feel like you want to hurt yourself at any given time? And students answered those questions specifically at an extremely high rate. Because of that, Miami University, the Adams Board, and the ESC got together and they created this program, this piloted program that we are a part of, where we would have providers who will be called wellness coordinators in locations, and they would facilitate referring students to services or bringing in programming depending on what is needed in that building. So we had Tanasia Kidd, who is she's from Making a Difference, and she's over at the high school. And then we have Sylvia Green, again, who is from Ohio Guidestone, and she's over at the middle school. So what they do, again, is they work with the administrators, they work with the school social workers and the teachers to see like what's going on in the buildings, to make referrals for students as needed, and to bring in outside providers so that families and students can have programming to alleviate some of the pressures that are happening in the building. They also participate in a student assistance program, a SAP team, to monitor behaviors and monitor attendance and things like that. So they are like an acting liaison in the building, and we are grateful to have both of them. So another way that we support our families is by having the school clinics and the school nurses in the buildings. So we have different roles. We have a district RN who supervises all of the school nurses and the health monitors. We have a district LPN who does more of the support. So she will fill in if there is a gap. She will provide training. She will go to locations to provide support if the the clinic is overwhelmed, depending on acuity. And then we'll have our building LPNs, and so certain locations will have an LPN and other locations will have a health monitor, and again, that is based on acuity. So we are, again, grateful to have them, and we've been working very closely with these school nurses and health monitors to partner with our Panther Wellness Clinic. So this is just, again, a visualization of where our school nurses are and where the health monitors are. And so, again, we are extremely grateful to have them. And another way that we are supporting our families is by having our Panther Wellness Clinic. We are in partnership with Neon, a community-based health service, and we have the Panther Wellness Clinic that is located over at the high school. And they do a number of different things. They do comprehensive services, they do child visits, they do immunizations, they do the physicals for sports and the employment. They do a lot of consultations. They do a lot of different things, sexual health for our teenagers, and prevention services. So we are working very closely with Neon so that we can ensure that the services that we'd like to see are in place, and to make sure that the things that we're already doing are done well. So this is a visualization of the age distribution that visits the Panther Wellness Clinic. So the age ranges from 10 to 18, which is expected because of the location of the Panther Wellness Clinic. So we, again, are working very closely with United Children's Hospital and Neon to grow this practice, because it's actually a practice. It has a doctor, it has a nurse practitioner, and a medical assistant in this space. So we're working very closely with them to figure out how we can get families over to the Panther Wellness Clinic at our elementary schools. So again, we've been working with the school nurses. So if a student comes down, they're ill, we call mom or whoever they're with, whoever their guardian is. We're calling and saying, hey, your student is sick and they need to go home. However, we have this clinic over here at the high school. You can go in, you can walk in, make an appointment, do whatever it is you need to do, and get your student seen. And we do that to cut down, again, on the absenteeism. Obviously, we want our students to be healthy, but it alleviates a lot of the out-of-school time. So we, again, are working very closely with our school nurses and our Panther Wellness Clinic to build that relationship and make it stronger. So again, this is a visualization of the reasons why families have been coming to visit the Panther Wellness Center. Currently, we are up to like 270 visits. The goal for the end of the year is 550, so we are well on our way, and I'm so excited about it. And again, this partnership with Neon is one that we are working very closely with. We meet several times a month to ensure that the services that are being provided are good services, and that we can still grow this practice. And then I will bring Mrs. Brown back up to talk about the targeted programs.
We're just getting warmed up. We're making our way through. So the first of the targeted programs that I'm going to talk to you guys about is Thrive, our middle school program that we launched about 2 years ago. And so when I conceived of this program, I had never heard this Einstein quote, but it really aligns with the thought process behind Thrive. Kids aren't all the same. And sometimes it's just the fact that they need to find the right environment where they can thrive. We realize that readily as adults. When we're making career decisions, it's, do I want to work in an office? Do I like to work with my hands? Would I like to work in a more creative environment? No, I need more structure. Yet, some way we think all students should learn the same. And so Thrive really is giving middle school students the opportunity to do school differently and find a way in which they can find success. Thrive focuses on projects and experiences that allow students to apply their learning in practical ways, and really supports the whole child through intense family engagement, emotional and behavioral support, as well as preparation and career-ready habits. The goal is that students in this program will develop necessary skills for them to achieve success both in high school and in their future careers. Thrive is is structured as a small learning community. It's built to support approximately 40 students in cohorts of 20 in grades 7 and 8. Currently, there are 29 students enrolled, with another 15 students who've been recommended to begin second semester. The whole team at Thrive is a part of reaching this goal, from the teachers who work to instill career prep skills, to the school counselor, to the wonderful staff from Making a Difference, which has become an integral part of the fabric of support for the students, both in Thrive and the high school students at Memorial Option Center. And I want to thank Angela Flowers from Making a Difference Consulting for being here tonight to support our presentation. If you look closely at that board, and I know it's hard to see, this isn't your mother's work board. The staff at MAD uses language that grabs the attention of the kids while simultaneously teaching them how to engage with adults. If you examine the job resources handout there, they capitalize on the social media trend, titling it very demure, very employed. If you don't know what that means, just ask a kid, they'll tell you. The interview tip sheet is titled Advice for the Hustlers, and the board finishes with the do's and don'ts of professional dress. Making a Difference is meeting the kids where they are and helping them get to where they want to go. Another one of our targeted support programs is Panther Academy. Students placed into Panther have demonstrated that traditional high school setting isn't working for them. They get placed on Panther typically for credit deficiency or having inconsistent attendance or struggling to adhere to school rules. Panther programming is self-paced and allows students who are credit deficient to accelerate their attainment of credits, increasing the chances that they can graduate in 4 years over taking classes in a brick and mortar building. Though Panther students work independently, students are also enrolled in instructional sessions with a teacher each week. Students enrolled in Panther Academy also have access to wraparound services with Making a Difference, and through their participation in groups or individual counseling sessions, our goal for students in Panther Academy is that they will gain the skills necessary to either help them transition successfully back to the high school or to a career that they will begin after graduation. Panther Academy is our most widely used option for middle and high school students who are referred for expulsion. Because we understand that exclusionary discipline practices can have long-lasting effects on students' lives, we only utilize expulsion as a very last resort. Instead, we try to help students continue to make progress towards graduation by providing them support in completing their online coursework, a dedicated school counselor, and access to those wraparound service. Though Panther Academy has a capacity of 150 high school students, we're finishing the first semester with 49 students in Panther Academy. This is down from 138 students at the end of last year. Though enrollment at Panther will likely increase over the second semester, we will continue to monitor it because its low enrollment is indicative of the work being done at Euclid High School having a real effect. Panther Assist is the last of the targeted support programs that we're going to speak about tonight, and it's primarily meant to support students in one of the 3 circumstances listed in that top bullet. Students who can't attend school in person because of medical conditions, students in need of a Tier 3 intervention for social, emotional, or behavioral needs, or students who are identified as having a disability who have exceeded 10 days of suspension. What makes Panther Assist different from Panther Academy is that it's meant to be a short-term option. And so students remain on their regular classroom rosters and continue to do the work that is being provided by their classroom teacher in the home school. They do this with the support of our academic tutor. The tutor communicates regularly with the homeschool teacher and supports students in keeping pace with their peers during their placement on Panther Assist. Students who are placed in Panther Assist and are identified as needing a Tier 3 intervention are also linked with Making a Difference Consulting. Again, our goal is that those students will develop the skills that they need to successfully matriculate back to their homeschool environment. We currently have 20 students enrolled in Panther Assist in grades 4 through 12. Despite our best efforts, though, we know that human nature dictates that emergency situations are going to arise. And so we've been making sure that we really strengthen our supports of those emergency support systems. Ohio Revised Code requires that each secondary school building in the state create a threat assessment team in an effort to prevent school violence. The goal of the threat assessment team is to identify students of concern, assess their risk for engaging in violence or other harmful activities, and identify intervention strategies to manage that risk. When a potential threat is reported, members of the threat assessment team are convened to assess the validity and the severity of that threat. The Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines, or CSTAG, that training teaches us that just because someone makes a threat doesn't mean they pose an actual threat. And so this protocol is what we use to assess whether or not a student poses an actual safety threat. The leaders of the threat assessment team are the building principals, Sherry Daniels at the middle school and Corey Russell at the high school. And the staff members that support them include their administrative teams, the security staff, the student mentors, counselors, social workers, the psychologists, and our behavioral health and wellness specialists that Jocelyn spoke about, Tanasia Kidd and Sylvia Green. So though all of these people are trained to evaluate potential threats, it's very unlikely that all of these people would be handling an individual situation. Any threat that is reported will be assessed by a building administrator and at least 2 of those members of the threat assessment team. And which team members those are will depend on the situation. We've also developed a referral form, so all staff members can use that form to refer a potential threat to the threat assessment team for follow-up. The threat assessment teams at both the middle school and high school began convening for monthly meetings that will be ongoing in December. I've provided the board with a copy of the CSTAG protocol so that you can see what the evaluation of a threat looks like. It really walks team members through an evaluation process that includes interviews, records reviews, and the use of a rubric-like tool. Based on the outcome of that evaluation, an appropriate safety plan may be developed. Our school resource officers are a part of that team, and they, along with the superintendent, will always be engaged if any event is deemed a very serious threat according to the protocol. In addition to the threat assessment team, which is a proactive measurement to prevent school violence, we also have a crisis response team to respond to traumatic events when they occur. Because we know that when emotions run high, subjectivity is very increased. So we always try to start with common language, and this is true in how we define a crisis. So a crisis is defined as a traumatic event that interrupts the normal functioning of school and requires immediate action. And this is the definition that we use to determine whether or not to deploy the crisis team. In addition to the team leads, which include the building principals and Jocelyn, our coordinator of student wellness, it also includes all of those frontline individuals that I led the presentation introducing you to. The counselors, the psychologists, the school social workers, and the mentoring specialists. If needed, Jocelyn may also engage our contracted service providers or grief support groups from the Hospice of the Western Reserve have also been someone that we call upon. Our crisis model of support promotes supporting the immediate needs of students and staff in our buildings, but also involves staying connected with those affected families as we try to support them in accessing resources that they might need in a crisis situation. We truly see ourselves as partners with our families, not only in times of crisis, but on a daily basis. And so Jeremy is going to talk about some of the ways that we stay regularly connected with families as he talks about some of our attendance initiatives.
Good evening. Again, my name is Jeremy Akery, and I am the attendance and residency coordinator of Euclid Schools. I am charged with the task of trying to tackle and improve our attendance rate, but at the same time decrease our chronic absenteeism percentage. Just wanted to review just a little bit about what I do and some of the other staff that work directly with me. As the attendance and residency coordinator, I'm primarily responsible for ensuring the district is abiding by House Bill 410 best practices, while also coordinating initiatives and policies for all of our buildings, grades K through 12. We also look to maintain residency requirements per board policy for our families, being it that we're not an open enrolled school district. So that entails and encompasses a whole lot when it comes to attendance. It ranges in educating our families and our students and staff, and making sure they're up on what the difference between truancy is versus chronic absenteeism. And then also what we found through training at the ESC and even at the state level, all of this is based off of relationships when it comes to attendance. It's that simple. Relationships with the teachers, the support staff in the buildings, making relationships with the parents, because when you build that rapport and the trust with them, they'll likely tell you some of the barriers that they're encountering. Then once we know, I can collaborate with a Miss Boyd or a teacher or a building administrator to help get that child back on track and attending school daily. Our residency specialist, Mr. Eric Hooks, his primary responsibility is to ensure and put families through the residency verification process, but also a responsibility that he assists me with is to, for our primary schools, he will be in contact with the AIT teams, which encompasses the building administrator and the family liaisons in those respective buildings, to make sure they have the reports to make sure we can proactively identify students that are either at risk or that currently meet the thresholds of being truant or chronically absent. And last but certainly not least, our attendance liaison, otherwise known as truancy officers, in our secondary buildings, being our middle school and our high school, they're on the front lines. They are identifying students who are both at risk and experiencing truancy and chronic absenteeism in their buildings. They are part of the attendance intervention teams that meet bi-weekly in our buildings to reach out to parents. We understand that we're not likely to get parents in our buildings during the traditional work hours, but phone conferences, emails, they are having to make good faith attempts to contact parents to let them know that their student will be on what we call a Panther engagement plan, which simply is a plan to say, hey, not, hey, we got you, you're truant or chronically absent, but more or less it is to say, hey, we're here to help you. These are the resources we have available to you. What things are causing your child to be absent? How can we help? And then from that moment, there's 60 days to show progress. And so with that being said, I'm really just trying to educate our families. Like, we're not trying to say, hey, you're a bad parent. We're trying to meet you halfway so we can get your child back on track. One of the main initiatives that we've been privileged to be a part of is a dynamic statewide movement and learning network designed to dramatically improve student attendance. Stay in the Game campaign was launched back in 2019 by the Cleveland Browns Foundation, Harvard's Proving Ground, and the Ohio Department of Education. We have been fortunate enough to be a planning district since 21-22 school year, and they have been so great to our district. These are just a few highlights that I wanted to discuss on this evening. We are one of 50 plus member school districts in the state of Ohio currently. Some of the great things that have happened just most recently, there was something they named the Browns takeover that occurred this school year at Shoreview Elementary, where Cedric Tillman came along with their staff and really put our kids that have shown good attendance and even improved attendance on the year and put them through different football drills. They also surprised me in the district with giving us a $2,500 attendance grant that we just received actually within this last week, where we can use it for anything geared to improve student attendance. So we have some great ideas in the works even now to help get us to where we need to be. We also had last year, the 23-24 school year, Shelby Harris became the principal of the day, so he sort of Miss Mason move over to the side at Bluestone. They earned that for their improvements. As you all have probably already heard, Mrs. Mason doing some phenomenal things at Bluestone and has significantly impacted their attendance. So Shelby Harris was there, visiting classrooms, visited the gym, and just rewarding our kids for their hard work, which was a great thing. And then most recently, the details are actually still in the works. Myself, Annie Abradovich, as well as Mr. Russell, will be meeting actually tomorrow. We just learned that through previous discussions with the Browns and my contact, said our kids are dealing with some mental health challenges, right? And so with that being said, the NFL gave the Cleveland Browns a $10,000 grant to award the school district and other districts in the area to put a mental health room in the building of our choice. So they contacted me and they said, hey, we think Euclid would be a great district to have this in a building. I said, absolutely, we'd love to. So there's talks right now that are going on that will be a standing game room at our high school, and that's going to be a phenomenal opportunity for our kids. And then we had a great clap out at Chardon Hills last year with Mo Hurst, who is a Stay in the Game ambassador. We actually impromptu said, hey, how can we touch more kids? How can we reward more kids instead of just a classroom? So we literally started at the top floor. All kids came out in the hallway. Mo Hurst came down, the second floor all the way down, and kids were going nuts. It was so great to the point where he said, hey, maybe one day we can have some Euclid kids come and have a tunnel at one of our home games. And so these are just a few opportunities that the Browns help us with. And I tell everyone, the Stay in the Game campaign doesn't fix attendance, but it increases awareness. It hopefully inspires and motivates and educates all those involved, all stakeholders involved. So it's a great partnership that we have created. Our next initiative has been with the Proving Ground. They collaborate with school districts to help identify and test evidence-based solutions to specific challenges that are obstacles to student achievement. Proving Ground's continuous improvement framework helps partners understand challenges and implement solutions that work for students, families, and schools. We've been a partner with them since the 2023-24 school year, and there's been two main interventions that we have decided to go with. The first one was the personal attendance nudge for the grades K through 3. The reason that the team at the time came up with this specific grade level is we were very surprised at the chronic absenteeism rate of kindergarten through 3rd grade. It was up to close to 50%. And what we found through talks and everything that we tracked, like especially at the kindergarten level, there were parents that were really approaching and treating kindergarten as a daycare. So it really wasn't important to them. It didn't matter to them if their child attended, because what's the use? They're not really learning yet, which, as we all know, that's not the case. And so with that, we took a proactive measure of kids that were approaching chronic absenteeism, which is 10%, missing 10% or more of the scheduled school days, regardless of the excuse. And what we decided to do there is if they missed 7.5% at each of the interim periods, we were contacting parents through a nudge. Some would receive an email, some would receive a physical letter just to have a randomization, and looks to notify and inform parents of their child that they're on track to being chronically absent. And then we adopted that measure to our Parent Square notification that we are actually doing currently at our secondary building, being the high school, where now about approximately half, according to our IT department, of our students grades 9 through 12 are being notified through Parent Square Their families are being notified if there are any class cuts or absences, if and when a child falls below a 70% grade level in their courses, and also for any major events or what have you that are transpiring for those specific grade levels. And so the last one that we do is at the end of every month, students will receive those notifications about those specific grade level, which grade that might fall below that 70%. And with that being said, we felt that was important because there's a big push to boost the graduation rate, as well as obviously failing courses, which is in direct line with curriculum and our graduation team. We do monthly check-ins with Proving Ground. Actually, we have our next scheduled one will be January the 6th. And so it's an accountability measure where we're saying, hey, did you all follow through with your notifications? Who sent it out? What did that look like? What does the data say? And so it's been a great partnership that we've also had with Proving Ground. And then we've also have our yearly network convenings that we just recently went to at Huntington Stadium, which is Cleveland Brown Stadium. And we just went there. And the beautiful thing about this is the networking opportunity that we do have with districts experiencing some of the same challenges that we currently have. Understand that it's not just a Euclid thing, not to make light of our current attendance challenges, but people throughout the state, people nationally are experiencing this thing that we know as chronic absenteeism. So of course, everyone wants to know what the data says. And so I just put together this table here, starting at the top here. The first column is our current year from the first day of school being August the 15th through December the 6th. Our chronic absenteeism is, of course, the second column, and our attendance rate is to the right of that. And as you can see, right now we're at 40%, and this is grades K through 12. That is an alarming number, but trust me when I say we're not where we used to be. We have made impact in a good way year by year. As you can see, last year during the same time period, we were at 44.9, and you can go down the list. Of course, the one 2020, 2021 with the asterisk, of course, we understand that was the peak of the pandemic. So I just want to make sure we clarify that. And I just want to make sure everyone understands here that what chronic absenteeism is. So that is the percentage of students who have missed 10% or more of the scheduled school days, no matter the excuse. That's what, some people, educators, parents really sometimes forget. It could be a legitimate reason, but how Department of Education looks at it is they're missing approximately 6 hours of instruction every time that they're out of the building. And so that's really how ODE has shifted. They're not looking at attendance rate because, as you can see, anytime we look at 90%, we say, hey, we're doing great. But really, that's like the holistic view. Now we're looking specifically at specific students when you're talking about who's missing 10%. So if you're at 80 days, which we're inching up to here, that means any kid that has missed 8 or more days is chronically absent. All right, and so I wanted to clarify that. And then attendance rate is the total number of days present divided by the total number of school days. And so just to also give you an idea of where we rank, the state chronic absenteeism rate during the 23-24 school year was 25.6% for the state. And so, that's how you can see how we compare to other districts. So at this time, I'll give it back to our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Karen Brown.
All right. This last section is called the data. And we call this section the data because it's the data that most likely influences perception of what it's like to be a student or a staff member in our school buildings. And I've provided for you in your folders versions of this that may be a little bit easier for you to read, blown up so that you can see each building. But I'm happy to report that overwhelmingly, when compared to first quarter last year, our first quarter discipline data is down. The orange bars here represent the number of office referrals that were submitted. The blue bars represent the number of students who received office referrals, and the green bars represent out-of-school suspensions. in almost all of our buildings, we see reductions. It's evident that our staff and building leaders are working diligently to support our students because we see these reductions even in buildings that are working with new student populations for the first time or who have increased overall building enrollment. When we look at the secondary data, it's the same. We also see reductions in both of our buildings. It's remarkable, though, to take a look at Euclid High School. The decreases there really are staggering. And I know you'll hear more about what's happening at EHS when that building makes its presentation in February. But I will tell you that Mr. Russell has put systems in place that utilize the student support services that we shared with you today that call for increased parent involvement and prioritize teaching students expectations and accountability. Looking at going from over 4,000 referrals first quarter last year to 559 this year really is remarkable. So in closing, our team is happy to share that through working to align our systems and our collective staff efforts around a shared vision of student support, we are moving forward with creating an environment where all students feel valued, supported, and guided towards achieving success. So to us, One Euclid means that we believe that all of our students can be great, and we are a part of the village that will get them there. So with that, I will close and open up to any questions.
Those numbers are amazing. Thank you so much for working so hard. My son was a senior there last year when those 4,000 referrals happened, and I cannot wait to show him this number. I am really, really grateful for the hard work that is going on in these schools, and particularly the high school and the middle school, to see the change in those numbers. You did save the best for last.
I tried.
I don't have a lot of questions. First of all, everyone did phenomenal on the presentation. I did have one question with regards to our Panther Academy. I was curious if anybody knows how many of the students in Panther Academy still participate in extracurriculars and athletics at the high school and middle school level.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I can get that answer. What I will tell you is that students, if they weren't placed for a disciplinary matter, are still allowed to participate in those things. But I'll look to see the numbers as to whether or not how many of those students are choosing to. I'll tell you that sometimes because of the Panther Academy schedule, where classes are scheduled into the evenings, they might be in class at the time where there are typically sports practices happening. We found that a lot of our students in Panther Academy are working. And so they have jobs. But I'll look into that and I'll get you that information.
I can add a large number of the Thrive students do bus over to the middle school every day and participate in sports.
Awesome.
Even some students have come over early and still participate in sports.
I wanted to say thank you for all of the systems that you are putting in place for getting our services streamlined. And I also want to say that I appreciate all of the resources that our students have in the wide variety of programs. That's very heartwarming to see. I did have one question for the family liaisons. So for example, for the McKinney-Vento students and the foster care students, what kind of system are the family liaisons using to link them to the external community partners? Are there, is it a database that they're using, or do we have partners in the community that is helping our families get adequate housing and, like you said, the utility assistance and the rent assistance? Do we have partners that we're working with, or is it just kind of based off a relationship?
It's based off relationship and need. So the liaisons will kind of check in with the families as needed, and if there's an issue that presents themselves, then they will use whatever relationship they have. So there's no Rolodex of like, this is who we go to for this, or this is who we go to for that thing, but it's basically just the knowledge about the community-based supports that we have.
Okay. Thank you.
But to add to that, I think to your point, Ms. O'Toole, we're trying to develop those systems, right? So this is the first year that we have actually tasked the family liaisons with this responsibility of really providing direct support to those McKinney-Vento families. And so one of the systems we want to develop is that resource for them to know where to go, because some family liaisons may have more extensive relationships than others. So as we try to build those systems, that is one of the things that we'd be looking to provide everybody.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. Sorry, I was just in my feelings for a moment there. In terms of the supports for students and families, I keep hearing at the city level that there's going to be kind of a return to the Euclid collaborative concept. And I wanted to see if they'd been in touch with you all about being a part of that conversation to make sure that our staff is at the table when they start to bring together those agencies to make sure that human resources in the city are in sync with one another. So I know Chris knows about it, and just make sure that we stay in the loop and that you all are at the table when those conversations start to happen. Have you heard any of that buzz yet?
I'll let Jocelyn jump in if I miss something, but I'll try to answer the question. We have been working with Murtis Taylor with the Neighborhood Collaborative, which is the collaborative that used to be here in Euclid and now is out of the district. And we have offered to them and we have talked to them about utilizing the space at Memorial Option Center to run that Neighborhood Collaborative back out of Euclid. The ball is in their court at this point. We've done all of the due diligence on our end and worked with Buildings and Grounds and presented them an agreement and all of that. And so they came out and they did the COAT event, and they have indicated that they are still interested, but those next steps haven't been taken yet. But we have had conversation with them and continue to. Did I leave anything out?
Wonderful.
And the city, I think, still is putting together, like making it the Euclid Collaborative again. So I think they're not quite there yet to share what they might want to do.
But I did hear
I am
Murtis
aware of
Taylor
the
mentioned in those conversations,
Correct.
so I hope that that's all going to come together. And certainly,
As you know, we are happy to engage.
Yes. yeah, and whatever we can do to support that, I think that's reasonable. So then, I really appreciate all of this data because we receive a lot of data, and I always value when data is used for decision making, but this packet has some of the questions we are most frequently asked. And so I really intend to keep this one close at hand to be able to reference the progress that has been made, the services that are available, the multi-layered supports. It's very hard for us to describe what we know is happening. And so really, I am deeply grateful for all of the detail and information in this presentation. Actually, if we could have a copy of it where I can make sure I can read all the names.
Sure.
Yep. That would be wonderful. Let me just glance real quick. I did have another question written down, but you can go if you want to, Gabe.
So I think you all did a really excellent job. I guess my only question is, Jeremy mentioned the difference between truancy and chronic absenteeism. So would you please explain the difference?
Absolutely. So when you talk about truancy, that the key term is it's unknown. It's without a legitimate excuse. Within truancy, there's thresholds. So the primary threshold is when a child misses 5 consecutive days of school without a legitimate excuse. So that could be Monday through Friday. But what parents don't realize is if they miss Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Monday, Tuesday, those are 5 consecutive days without an excuse. So they don't call, we don't know where they are. So that's truancy. There's another 42 hours in a month. So that's the equivalent of 7 days in a month without a legitimate excuse. And then there's 72 hours in a year, which is the equivalent of 12 days in a year. Again, key without a legitimate excuse. So if a kid is suspended, that doesn't qualify for truancy because we know why they're not there. When it comes to chronic absenteeism, again, there could be legitimate reasons. So that's 10%. So just use easy math. 100 days, a kid misses 10 or more, they're chronically absent, regardless if they were ill, regardless if they were suspended. So that's what we try to, we get caught up because suspensions count. So that's why the state there's this real big push now on, do we have any alternative ways to discipline kids, because we know when they're suspended, that's going to kill your chronic absentees. So that's the main difference. Chronic absenteeism is with or without an excuse. Truancy means there's no legitimate excuse.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I found my question. Jocelyn, you mentioned the student survey that was used in putting in place the Project Aware. That student survey, was that like a state or regional survey, or was that specific to Euclid students?
No, that was a state survey, and it still is happening every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to say also, how we talk matters so much, and the language that is being used to describe what our families are facing in terms of the obstacles. I even love the fact that we have an attendance team instead of a truancy team. And the language that you all are using to describe the work we're doing in the district is really powerful and empowering versus problem-based. And I just want to say that out loud, that I'm really grateful to hear the way you describe the way you're helping our students and families.
I did have one more thing she just reminded me. I wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Creel for his new student leadership initiative.
Yes.
I absolutely love that. Not pulling in the most popular, but the ones that have the most leadership, I think is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, just, I think what was important is the community often asks us, what are we doing? And the comprehensive approach the team took today to put this together shows it's not just one thing. There was a book years back called Tipping Points, and these are very small margins. If one program works for 10 kids, it's worth doing. Is another thing is going to work for another group of kids. And all that adds up, and I think we're starting to reach some tipping points where it's swinging back in the direction of helping kids. Ms. Touros took some of my, one thing I wanted to say, that everything the team does, and I'm talking not only the people in the room, but I know the people you work with, it is truly about giving our families and our kids empowerment and agency. That's what we're trying to do. We all have obstacles, so anyway, I was sitting back just amazed on all the work we provide because our kids matter. And thank you for ending with one Euclid. I just kind of love that saying, because truly that's what this is all about. So if the community wants to know, now we've got a presentation we can tell them they can watch, and they can learn all about the things we do. So thank you so much.